Welcome back to Young Engineers of Today. I hope you had a good couple of days, and I hope your week's been going all right. If it hasn't been going great, at least you're halfway through with it. Before you know it, it'll be the weekend. But regardless, hope everything's been going all right. To nobody's surprise, we're going to continue with Godot. We're actually going to basically just toss the project we were working on over the last few days out the window, and we're going to work on something a little bit more involved. Because the Hello World was nice and all, but we've got bigger and better plans in mind. And those bigger and better plans are going to be Pong. I know. Try and curb your enthusiasm. Everything from here on out changes. But yeah, no, we're probably going to spend the next few lessons getting that set up. It'll be more time consuming than our Hello World. There are going to be more concepts in place that we're going to, have to go over and explain and things like that. And you'll actually get a better idea of not only programming in general, but also sort of a lot of the fundamentals behind game programming, game design, things like that. So hopefully, that you find that interesting. Hopefully that impenetrable wall of game design and game creation gets a little bit more transparent. And you get a better feel for sort of the inner workings of things and how you might want to structure something like this. That's my cat. I don't know if you can hear him. He's been very insistent today. He's been very bored, apparently. But you might hear him a couple of times. But anyway, yes, hi. We're going to get started on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a link to the assets that we're going to use. And it's just going to be a set of it's going to be a set of sprites and things like that you're going to use for this project. So we got a link incoming into the chat box. There you go. Hopefully that ends up working out for you. Let me see here. If I just click on it. Yeah, perfect. Should just open up a new tab in Chrome real quick or whatever your preferred browser is, and then actually get the download started. So what we're going to have it's not exactly going to be a pretty game. I mean, as you can see, we're going to have a cyan paddle and a magenta paddle. And then there's going to be this little dotted line in the middle, which is going to be our midpoint line, and then the ball, which is just a white circle. And this download should take all of like half a second. It's a tiny amount of assets. But once that's done, go ahead and open it up in your folder. Figure out where it is. And I've got it right here. I've got actually 2 sets of Pong assets because I went ahead and tested this out earlier. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new folder on the desktop. I'm going to clear off my desktop a little bit, so there's going to be less stuff for you guys to have to figure out what you're looking at and everything. Just a little bit of housekeeping before I show it off to you guys. It's not that I'm one to be self-conscious about the state of my desktop, but it also makes it easier for you guys to figure out, to look at it and see what's going on. I have no idea what that is. It's always great when you have something on your desktop or on your computer that you have no idea what it is. Yes, hello, cat. Hush, hush, hush. Okay, that's probably about as good as it's going to get for now. So here we go. I see a couple of people joined, so I'm going to go ahead and put the link back into the chat box. It's for a set of assets for a game that we're going to be working on over the next few lessons. It is a seriously tiny file, so, you know, don't sweat the download speed or anything like that. It should take all of seconds at the most. But yeah, here's my desktop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder here. And the reason I'm creating this new folder is going to be where I'm going to store all of my stuff for this Godot project, and it's actually where I'm going to route this new project to. So if you prefer not to use your desktop, you can do this new folder in your documents or whatever. That's all personal preference. I'm doing this here so I can navigate to it, you know, more easily, and because I need easy access for the class and everything like that. But again, you guys can do whatever. So I'm just going to call this Godot Pong. Just like that. And then I'm going to extract these Pong assets into that Godot Pong folder. So now if I take a look at it, I should have a ball, a left and a right palette, and a separator. So far, so good. Nothing too mind-blowing here. If you've, you know, ever unzipped a file before, you should be pretty familiar with this process. But I just want to make sure we're all on the same page right now. So I figured I'd walk through that as well. I believe I just had the realization. Nope, never mind. So we'll give everybody a second to find that file and unzip it to a folder of your choosing. And then I guess just go ahead and raise your hand once you've done that. Also, once you've done that, go ahead and open up Godot. I'll wait for at least the majority of the hands to be up before I continue. Okay, like one or two more hands, and then we're good to go. Just so you guys know, I'm not just sitting here awkwardly and silently staring at the screen or anything like that. I mean, I am, but it's for a reason. Yeah, no worries, Micaiah. I put a link into a chat box for Pong assets. I just had you guys download it. It's a very tiny file. And then we extracted it to its own folder. I put it on my desktop because that, for uh, purposes of finding it. But basically, this is where your next Godot project is going to be. So wherever works best for you, you can extract it to its own folder in your documents or whatever. And then once that's done, just open up Godot and we'll start creating a new project. Give everybody like another minute or two, and then we'll get started on the next step. I'll tell you, don't pull a muscle in your abdomen. That is like the worst thing ever, because anytime you have to cough or laugh or sneeze, it's nice and painful. Anytime you have to move your torso at all, you get reminded that you use that muscle. Yeah, it really is. I pulled one of my obliques, and so now it's just like I can't lean over, I can't twist, I can't cough. It's pretty bad. All right, so now that hopefully everybody's got or is close to getting their files unzipped into the appropriate location, and they've got Godot open, we're going to get started on the next step. I'm not entirely sure how to parse that. I apologize. Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, what point are you at then? Yeah, no worries. It also doesn't have to be like, perfectly spelled or anything like that. We can also fix that with the project name. And then I guess just let me know when you're good to go, and we'll go to the next step. Yes, hello, Cat. Uh, we're gonna start up the Godot engine. So just go ahead and open up Godot once you've gotten it. Or you can call it simple 2D game if you want to. I called it Godot Pong. It's there's no real the name isn't gonna matter so much. No, not Godot. Just the assets. There should be a link in the chat box for it. For this simple 2D game that we're making. Yeah. Do you see a link in the chat box? It says like documents.godotengine.org. Oh, okay, got. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, it should have given you a zip file. That just downloaded, like right quick. And then that's the zip file that I want you guys to unzip and place into a folder. Yes, Cat. Hello. Hello. I know, I don't pay nearly enough attention to you. Such a demanding cat. How do you save it? Like the download? Or with some browsers, it might ask you if you want to open it immediately or save it. Um, Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I guess it depends on the browser that you're using. Using Chrome, I'm used to having it automatically download to my hard drive rather than it asking me whether or not I want to save it. No, don't worry about it. If we run into a situation where it's like super necessary, then we'll do that. Uh, I've made a few different things with a few different engines. Yeah, it's just through this class. Yeah, between Scratch and Unity and Godot, and I'm sure there are other ones. We spent a little bit of time with processing, and it's it's good practice, I guess. At some point, it would really actually be mostly helpful for me to just knuckle down and make something, anything. Um, I just part of it's my own motivation, and part of it's just being pulled in so many different directions. But you know, dedication, I suppose, is a better way to put it. motivation is fleeting, and for those times when you don't have it, you need dedication. But yeah, all in all, I think like 3 or 4 different times. Yeah, hit that. And that's actually a walkthrough of what we're going to be doing today too. So, you should just be able to left click it. You don't necessarily have to open it in a new tab. But open a new tab also works, I believe. Yes. Hi, cat. Thank you for oh, go ahead and open it. It should open up the zip file, and then you can extract it to somewhere like another folder. To how do you? So if you clicked open, it did like a folder open, and it just had like 4 things in it. Okay. At the top, do you see something that says like extract all? Maybe. Hopefully. It should just be like a big old button near the top of that window. Perfect. Okay, so we know we're looking at the zip file now. So what I want you to do is I want you to right-click on the desktop, and then there should be an option that says Create New Folder, or just New Folder. I want you to select that, and then give this folder a name. It can be like Simple Game, or Godot Pong, or just Pong, or whatever you prefer to call it. And then you got that done? Or I guess just let me know when you have. Um, okay, so did that happen? Did you click on Extract All? Okay, perfect. So far it's unzipped. Do you know where this new page is on your computer? Like if you needed to find it later, could you? Okay, so let's do this then. Um, go over to your, so keep that page open, okay? The new one, keep that open. And then if you right click on your desktop, you'll get like a little menu, right? I want you to select new folder in that little drop down menu. And it should create a new folder on your desktop. All right, now give that a name like my project or whatever, something that you can remember, and that's related to the fact that we're going to be making a Pong game. You can call it like Pong game if you want to. Now, I want you to take all that stuff in the new page. You can either hold down left click and drag a box around it, or you can click the first one, hold down the shift key and click the last one, and that should select all four of them, right? Okay. Now, with all of them selected like that, just yeah, you're gonna click on one with the left mouse button, but keep the left mouse button held down, and then move your mouse over to the other folder, and that's how you drag things. It's just moving the mouse with the left mouse button held down. Excellent. So all that stuff is in that folder now, right? Perfect. Open up Godot. All right. So we should all be looking at this project manager screen now, and it should have the our first button, hello world, little project that you guys were that you guys created the last time we were using Godot, which is fantastic. But today we're going to create a new project because this is going to be a whole different beast from what we did before. It's going to be the same kind of concepts that we've gone over. There are going to be some new concepts. There are going to be some new stuff. But hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense by the time everything's done here. So what I want you to do is I want you to click on New Project. And you'll get your Create New Project window, just like you've always had. Whoa, super exciting. So now, we've got project path and project name. So far, so good. They're empty, which is not, ideal, but we're going to make sure that we fill them out with the useful stuff. So there's this button next to project path, labeled Browse. We're going to click on that. And it should default to, I believe, the last place that you navigated to when you created your last project. In that case, it's my desktop, which is why I put my Godot Pong folder on my desktop. But for you guys, what you want to do is you want to go to the folder that you just created. So for me, it's Godot Pong. I'm going to double click on that. I know I'm there because I should have 5 things here. I've got this little folder with the 2 dots, and then I've got ball.png, left palette.png, right palette.png, and separator.png. Those are the 4 pictures that I just unzipped. Incidentally, as a side note, this little 2-dot thing is the shorthand for the parent folder, which you'll find in pretty much every computer system nowadays because Unix uses it, by extension Linux uses it, and Windows uses it. So it's a very common thing to see. But that's all that means. So if you're ever navigating by the terminal too, you can also type like the change directory and then 2 dots, and it'll bring you up one folder. Not really important to know. Just another one of those little side bits of knowledge. So now that we're in our Pong folder, go ahead and we'll just call it Pong. Under File, just type in Pong, hit Open. And now we're here. I navigated to my Godot Pong folder from the Browse, and it automatically filled out project name with the name of my folder. If you're here, excellent. So far, so good. Go ahead and click the Create button. Boom. And it should be added to your list of stuff. Here we go, Godot Pong. So now we've created a new project. Let's go ahead and open it. Just double click on it, it should open up. And by now, this should look pretty familiar to everybody. We've got, well, at least, you know, not necessarily terribly familiar, but something that you've seen before. You've seen the scene view, you've seen the file system, you've seen the inspector, you've seen the editor window in the middle, the 2D and 3D and script buttons, you've got the little play and package and all that kind of stuff buttons up here. Let's debug. Okay. We've got the little thing at the top which tells us which scene we're currently looking at. Oh dear. Well, yeah, again, just create a new, if you can, create a new project with at the folder where you moved all those files to on your desktop. Were you able to at least catch all that stuff I was saying? Like, did it still come through all right? All right, excellent. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to wax a little philosophical about what we're going to do. Not really, I'm going to explain what we're going to do. So, you guys remember that nodes are pretty much the foundation of everything in Godot. And by extension, scenes. Scenes contain nodes, and nodes have all the stuff that we need. They represent all the stuff that is in a game. However, there's sort of a conundrum that we have, if you will. It's mostly an excuse for me to use the word conundrum. We want to simulate physics in this game, right? I mean, to at least a minor degree, because Pong is kind of physics-based. There's a ball that bounces around, it hits paddles, and then it bounces away, and it doesn't bounce away in the same exact direction that it bounced away from before. Sometimes it'll go up, sometimes it'll go down. It'll bounce when it hits the edge of the play screen, either the top or the bottom. Of course, if it hits the left or the right, then, you know, it'll keep track of that and do a score. But regardless, there are some very, very rudimentary physics involved in Pong. For that reason, Godot is going to need to be able to access pretty much everything in the Pong game, because everything is going to be controlled to some degree or another. You're going to have the ball. It's going to need to know the state of the ball at all times. It's going to need to know the state of everybody's score at all times, and there's going to need to be something to keep track of it. It's going to need to know the state of the paddles at all times. It's going to need to be able to take input from a user in order to control those paddles at all times. And it's going to need to be able to take this stuff and output it to the screen so that you can see what's going on. So what I'm trying to say in so many words here is we need some way of being able to easily access all of the information on the screen at once. Thinking back to our hello world, does anybody maybe have just like a preliminary idea at this point of how we could accomplish that? If you don't, totally fine. Don't sweat it. I'm sort of speaking obliquely here. Yeah. Excellent, Aiden. Exactly. The easiest way for us to access information in a node was, well, in multiple nodes, was to make them children of the node that had the script on it, right? So our panel had the script on it, and because the button and the label were both children of the panel, we were able to, through that one script, access both the button and the label and take information from them and modify them as we needed to. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create one node that everything else is a child of. I'm sorry to hear that. That's really... I could see that being a pain. So yeah, I'll put the video up on YouTube tonight, and then we can go through, you know, all that stuff. If you have any questions about anything, you know my email address. You can email me. But we'll see you on Monday. Hopefully everything works out. But yeah, I am sorry to hear that. All right, have a good night. And of course. But yeah, basically the easiest way to do this is to make one node the parent of pretty much all the other nodes in the game. But the question then becomes, what do we make the parents? Where do we decide who the parent's going to be? Is it going to be one of the paddles? Is it going to be the ball? Is it going to be the separator in the middle? More often than not, the best choice in situations like these is to just create an empty node, a node that doesn't represent anything, and it just kind of exists. And you can think of it, like if it really helps you to imagine it, you can think of the node sort of being up in the corner of the screen, invisible or something like that. But it's more appropriate to say that it holds a space in memory, but it doesn't actually exist on the game screen. This is one of the design philosophies that people sort of hold on to when they're creating games. I say hold on to like it's a bad thing. It's not at all. But that was the first word that came to mind. Anyway, point being, what we're going to do is we're going to create essentially an empty node that's going to hold our script, and then everything else is going to be a child of it. Now, Godot has accounted for this, of course. I mean, Unity has too, and all these other things, but Godot has specifically accounted for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new node real quick. As you can see, we have all of our different types of nodes canvas item, spatial. It's not going to be under spatial. It's going to be under canvas item because it's going to be a 2D. And we're going to minimize the green nodes, the control nodes. And as you can see here, we've got node 2D, canvas modulate, particle 2D, blah, blah, blah. The blue ones, these are all of the 2D nodes. Well, it may surprise you to know that node 2D is just as valid a node as anything else. So we're going to go ahead and create a node 2D. As you can see, it's kind of up here in the upper left-hand side, not doing anything. That's fine. We'll keep it there. It's just going to be invisible to the user. They're going to be none the wiser. If you really wanted to, you could make this the size of the entire viewport. For the sake of argument, that's what I'm going to do too, just to show you that, again, it really, it doesn't matter. So we'll do that. Yeah, I don't know why I moved it out of the way, just to make my life more difficult, I guess. So this is our view screen. This is our node 2D. And now we're going to do one more thing before we really get started on placing everything in earnest. What we're going to do is we're going to go up to Scene and down to Project Settings. Get that opened. Now this should look pretty familiar. Remember, we went here for the mains, like to set up the main scene so that we could do our Hello World. But we never really touched on anything else that's here. And there's a ton of stuff that's here. Holy wow, there's a lot of stuff that's here. We just look over here in sections. Application, debug, display, render, audio, physics, core, rasterizer, display. Now, notice there are 2 sets of these. But there are actually 3 sets of these. We've got rasterizer. We've got a third rasterizer. But we've got .iOS and .android. I'm sure you guys could draw a logical conclusion as to why there are separate sets there. And if it's because of iPhones and Android phones, you'd be correct. You might also draw the logical conclusion that Godot makes games for Android and iOS as well. You would also be correct. So, if you really wanted to, you could make your breakout game into the mobile world, make the next Flappy Bird or whatever. Although that's, I'm going to be honest with you, that's kind of like winning the lottery. That kind of stuff doesn't happen every day. But, you could certainly make mobile games, nobody's stopping you. Anyway, physics 2D, image loader, SSL, locale, global, editor. What we're going to do is we're going to go to display. We've got our driver, we've got width, we've got height. We can turn it on to full screen, basically lock it to full screen. If we change the width and the height, it's going to change the resolution of the screen so that it's full screen. Make it resizable. Use 2D pixel snap, keep screen on, blah, 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 emulate touchscreen. Pretty self-explanatory. If we wanted to pretend that we had a touchscreen and have it emulate one. But what we're going to do is we're going to mess around with the width and the height. Now, how many of you have ever spent any time like trying to get DOSBox to run to play like really old DOS games? There are 2 hands up right now, but I don't know if they were originally up from before. Probably, yeah, exactly. So there you go. When you were younger and stuff like that. Now, aside from the fact that you had to mess around with the sound blaster settings and stuff like that, otherwise you get a bunch of really unpleasant static coming out of the computer, there was generally a resolution that you dealt with, and that was 640 by 480 or 640 by 400 or something like that. Generally one of those things. 800 by 600 once you start getting into the Windows world. As you guys are probably already aware, that is resolution. That is how many pixels wide by how many pixels tall. What we're going to do is we're going to set it to one of those super old resolutions in the project settings screen. I know that mine disappeared because I clicked away from it, so I'm going to bring it back and go back to the display. And under width, I'm going to set it to 640 just by clicking on it and not clicking elsewhere like a dorp. So 640 by 400. This is going to be a super small game window. In fact, you'll get an idea of how much computers have advanced because it won't be full screen. So you'll see exactly how much space the game window takes up on a modern monitor with a modern resolution. But so far so good. So we've got our width of 640 and our height of 400. We're going to go ahead and close that. As you can see, our view screen window resized itself. It is now much smaller than the Node 2D, and if you'll remember, I resized the Node 2D so that it was the size of the view screen before I changed the resolution. So I'm just going to go ahead and resize it again. No biggie. So now we've got our Node 2D, which is the size of our view screen. Again, not entirely necessary, but it's just a thing to do. Now what we need to do is we need to start actually adding our... Oh, no, I skipped a step real quick. Let's go back into the project settings real quick. And I need to find it under... Yeah, here we go. So under render, you've got a default clear color. We're going to set that up to be just straight black, jet black. Black is the darkest night. You know, whatever. Just straight up black. Once that's done, go to import, and we're going to import some, whoops, it's not showing these. Hold the phone real quick. I believe what I can do instead is alright, we'll do that instead. So let me delete that node and start over from the beginning. Alright, so now that we've set the background color, we've set the resolution, we've set up our Node 2D, we've set up everything that we need to set up so far. Now it's time to start bringing in our sprites. So I'm going to click on New Node up here. And as you can see, I already have it selected. It's going to be Sprite. It's going to be the little smiley face. Go ahead, select that, hit Create. And we're going to create 4 of them. Oops. Make sure that they're all the children of Node 2D and not of one another. So they all should be on the same level. So as you can see, they're all indented the exact same amount, which means that they're all the child of Node 2D. The incorrect way would be if they, if they looked something like this. Then they're all children of each other, and that doesn't really work out so well. It's doable, but it's not going to be fantastic. Your life will be harder. So let's not make your life harder. Let's make them all children of Node 2D. Another easy way to tell is if they have sprite and then some number after them. So if it says, you know, sprite, sprite 2, sprite 3, and sprite 4, then you know you're on the right track. Okay, so now we've got our sprites. But they're empty. This doesn't really... What is this? What is this? Well, we need to add a texture to it. So let's go ahead and do that. Under the inspector over here on the left-hand side, I'll go ahead and select Sprite, move this one over to the right, sort of resize it a little bit. And then under the inspector over here, texture, I can click the little drop-down menu. I've got new atlas texture, new image texture, new large texture, and load. We're going to load. And now we've got, as you can see, our resource directory. So we've got ball.png, icon.png, left and right palette, and separator. Because I moved mine over to the right like this, I'm just going to go ahead and use the right palette and hit open. And it's ginormous. It's going to resize itself automatically. Not ideal. So we're going to shrink it. Shrinky, 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 shrink. Until it's a size that we're mostly satisfied with. That should be good. Move it to the middle here. Perfect. So there's our right paddle. Let's do the same for the left paddle. Move a sprite over. It doesn't matter which sprite you use. See, I'm using Sprite 3 and Sprite 4. You could have used Sprite and Sprite 2 for this. It doesn't matter. It really don't matter. So I'm going to bring that one over to the right, or excuse me, the left. Load the left palette texture. Not click cancel. I'm going to resize it until it's something sane. And I'm going to actually overlap it with the right palette so that they look more or less the same size. All right, good to go. I'm just going to move it straight over to the left. Zoom out a little bit, see how this looks. Pretty satisfied with that so far. There we go. That should be good. It's not exactly, you know, it's not an exact science, so don't sweat it too much. Now for Sprite 2, I'm going to load the separator. Once again, the separator is just absurdly large, so we'll re-shrink it, shrinkificate it, make it decently thin, and about the size of our viewports. Just make sure it stretches from top to bottom, and get it as close to the center as you can. If you can't get it exactly in the center, again, don't sweat it too much. It's just going to be a little bit easier for one person. Then once you have the separator done, as one might predict, we're going to add the ball in. Ball! Way too large! Shrink the ball. Don't die. Sorry, referencing a song. Alright. Get the ball sort of in the... Undo. Sort of in the middle. No. We're going to transform this to 0, 0. That's just me being finicky. You don't have to do that. This is a more exact way to do it. So I can spend some time explaining this too. So if you want to make sure that everything's on the same level, you can click on one of these, and over here in the inspector, under Node 2D, there's a transform. Transform is just a fancy way of saying its position in space. And now, here's the deal. The reason why it's not just called position is because there's a little bit more to it than that. There's actually its position in space, its rotation, and its size or scale. So if you click on any of these, it can give you that information. As we can see, it's at x negative 27.315424, just to make things difficult, and y 0. If we go over here to the right palette, we can see that it's at x 26.874483 and y 0. Interesting that it's at a negative x. It's a little bit concerning, but regardless, whatever. Can figure that out later. So you can always make sure that the y value is the same for both of them so that they're in the same place. So far we've got the makings of a Pong game. Not kind of, sort of, not really. We've got everything placed down. On Monday, we're going to get started with the scripting, which is going to allow us, the ability to have the ball move around and do the bounce and be able to move the paddles and do all sorts of Pong and Pong-like activities. Keep score and all that good stuff. We'll now, for reference, for your reference and for mine, this is going to be a very simple Pong game. It's not even going to show us the score. We're going to intentionally leave it that way so that, as a challenge to you guys, you can maybe get it set up so that it displays a score at the top. You can select like 1 player or 2 player and put in a very rudimentary, sort of AI for it. Now that would be a pretty significant leap up from what we're going to make. That would take a little bit of research and time and investigation and things like that. But if you could do that, that would be awesome. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to get it set up so that at the very least we can move both paddles. So you can play against yourself or against a friend. And by against yourself, I mean literally you would have one hand controlling one paddle and one hand controlling the other paddle. Or you could play against a friend, and we'll get it so that the game will run and it will end after a certain score. But anyway, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to do the poll questions, and then we're going to leave it open for question and answer time, and then we're going to break for, the weekend.